from the FBI. Was the FBI able to confirm any criminal allegations contained in the Steele document?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that's a question I can answer in an open setting because it goes into the details of the investigation.
There's a lot of questions that still are surrounding all of this. That was the former FBI Director James Comey back in June at a Senate intelligence hearing being asked about the infamous Trump dossier. Now the House Intel Committee is issuing subpoenas to the FBI and the DOJ. They want to know more about the origin of that document and what it was used for by the FBI. They're reportedly calling on now FBI Director Christopher Wray and Attorney General Jeff Sessions to testify if the information that they have requested is not provided. Here now, one of the people leading that investigation, Congressman Trey Gowdy, the House Intelligence Committee. Good to have you here this evening, Congressman.
Thank you.
So they want to see, they want to know, you want to know, and the American people want to know, if this dossier, which was later discredited or couldn't be substantiated at the very least, was used as the leverage to unmask people in the Trump campaign, correct?
Well, was it used to initiate either a law enforcement or counterintelligence investigation? Was that the evidentiary basis that the Bureau used to launch either a criminal probe or a counterintelligence probe? And it's fine if it were, if it weren't, as long as you let me know how you vetted the information in the dossier. So I need the Bureau and DOJ to say either we relied upon it or we did not rely upon it. And if we did rely upon it, this is how we vetted the information before we used it.
I mean, that's pretty significant. You know, you want to understand that if this dossier, and also the generation of that dossier, what did they know about the generation of that and who was essentially commissioning, who was asking for that dossier, right?
Who commissioned it is important. What's most important to me, I mean, if a friend is capable of telling a lie and an enemy is capable of telling the truth. Who commissioned it is important, but I'm much more interested in whether or not the underlying data was accurate. And the only way to know whether it's accurate is for the Bureau to investigate the sources and the sub-sources. And then I would think everyone would want to know, did our premier law enforcement agency, the FBI, rely on this document to initiate a criminal probe or in court filings and representations before a court? That is an eminently legitimate question, and I really don't know why it's taken the department this long to answer.
And so Jeff Sessions is now the Attorney General in charge of the DOJ, and he's having trouble getting the answers to this information?
I'd be shocked if it's made it up to General Sessions level yet, but I bet it will shortly, because next week is coming, and that's when House Intel Committee wants either, what we want are the documents. We don't want the drama, but if you're not going to produce the documents, you need to come in person and explain to us why the entity that created the FBI is not entitled to provide oversight over the FBI.
Yeah, and in terms of James Comey, Senator Graham has said that he has to come back. There are things he needs to clarify. What are those?
Well, there is evidence. There's a basis for which to question Director Comey on whether or not he reached a conclusion with respect to Hillary Clinton before he interviewed all the witnesses. There is more than an evidentiary basis that he reached the conclusion before he interviewed her. So it is, again, not illegitimate to ask a law enforcement officer, did you make your mind up before the end of the investigation? If you're ever in a courtroom, the one thing the jury will tell the jury, the judge will tell the jury, you cannot make up your mind until the last witness has testified. And the reason for that is the last witness may tell you all the information you need to know. So how you can reach a conclusion before you've interviewed all the witnesses is befuddling, and if that were done, or if it weren't done, Comey deserves a chance to explain it, but Senator Graham deserves a chance to ask the question.
Congressman Trey Gowdy, thank you.
Yes,
always good to have your update on this. Good to see you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Congressman Gowdy of South Carolina joins us now. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I don't really know what the purpose of all these statements from members of the committee are on both sides. I'm paying close attention. I'm totally confused. So can you just give us a quick summation of what we know for certain about spying on American citizens, including the Trump campaign?
Well, what we know is that if there is an evidentiary basis for the president's tweet, it has not been shared with the public. So we'll get that out of the way. The allegation was very specific. President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower.
Yes.
There's not an evidentiary basis for that. Where it gets a little more complicated is there are surveillance methodologies that allow the collection of, hypothetically, foreign-to-foreign communications. And to the extent that U.S. citizens are mentioned or collected in that, in those surveillance programs, they're masked. And I think you want the information collected from a national security standpoint, but the masking is important. So with General Flynn, the public reporting is that he was unmasked. All right, that's not only a breach of protocol, that's a violation of the law. That's the felonious dissemination of classified material. What Chairman Nunes' point is, I want to know whether or not other people have been unmasked, even though you don't know about it publicly yet.
Interesting, but it would be known in the intelligence community. So my understanding from watching Director Comey is that intel agencies reporting to the Obama White House initiated an investigation of people around candidate Trump before his inauguration. Is that your understanding?
It is not, and I would be surprised if anybody could confirm that. There's a warrant process that you have to go through with the FISA court, and it has to be approved. And again, there's a public record of all of this, Tucker, which would be in the custody of the now Trump Department of Justice. So if there were an evidentiary basis for that, it's pretty easy to lay that out. There's a paper trail.
Why would Director Comey be willing to reveal the existence of some investigations but not comment on others?
That was really surprising to me. If you remember what he said, he sought special dispensation from the Department of Justice to confirm not just a counterintelligence investigation, one that may manifest itself with criminality. But yet when I asked him about the leaks, he said he could not confirm that there was an investigation. I think they're both of national interest. One happens to be a felony. So I was a little surprised and a little disappointed that he can't at least tell us we are investigating the felonious dissemination of classified material.
And yet he can tell us other things that may suit the agendas of others. It seemed bizarre. Now, we interviewed someone on this show last week who spent 30 years at NSA, Mr. Binney, who said that there is no question that the NSA has personal communications from then-candidate Trump and those around him on its servers. Do you think that that's true?
It depends. It depends on who they're talking to. If you are talking to someone for whom the intelligence agencies are authorized to collect, then yes, you may be captured on it. If there is a reason to collect on a non-U.S. citizen and you happen to call that person, then you would be collected as a U.S. citizen. That's where the masking and treating it confidentially comes into effect.
But he was saying, and again, he worked there for all those years, that NSA collects basically all data coming in and out of the United States because they've tapped into the main data trunk. And the question is, what do they do with it? But they have it. Is that your understanding? Is that true?
I think that's a little broader than what my understanding is. You would have to get a warrant. If you're talking about U.S. citizen, you have to get a warrant, application, FISA court. If you're talking foreign to foreign, it's a separate analysis. If you're talking U.S. to foreign, it's still a separate analysis and one that would require going to the FISA court.
So my last question, you sit on the committee that oversees our intelligence agencies. Are you satisfied that if you request a specific accounting of something that you're going to get it, you're going to get a straightforward answer and get the entire answer?
I don't know that I would, Tucker, and I'm not dodging your question. There's something called the Gang of Eight. They are entitled to information that even HPSI members are not.
Members of the committee would receive that information, you think?
Speaker of the House, the minority leader, ranking member, and the chairman of HPSI are four in the Gang of Eight. If you're just a HPSI member like I am.
I get it, but you think they can get whatever they want and they can get the full story and the intel agencies will give it to them and feel the obligation to give it to them?
They should, and I'll only caveat it by saying should, because when one source has the information, the other's requesting it, you never know what you're not
Well,
given,
you never do know that, and that's the concern for ordinary voters like me.
Yes, sir.
Congressman, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Trey Gowdy of South Carolina will be at the hearing, of course, and he joins us now. Mr. Gowdy, thanks a lot for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So it does seem, in light of the foreign policy developments of the past month or so, where the United States has assumed a hostile posture toward Russia, that most people have kind of decided, you know, how would Trump be doing the bidding of Vladimir Putin when he and Putin are so at odds? So why, given that, is this going forward?
Well, I think some of the folks initially who thought that that was the motive behind, you have to accept as accurate that Donald Trump colluded and coordinated with the Russians and that they had a motive to help him. So all of those assumptions had to be made before you can then say, but he's taking a more belligerent stance towards Russia, therefore that must not be true. I start at ground zero. What happened in 2016, whether it was Russia or another foreign actor, did they try to interfere with our election? What was our response in 2016? Not 2 months ago, 2016. What did we know? What did we do about it? The felonious dissemination of classified material, to me, is always relevant. Whether it's in the headlines or not, it's always important, and the issue of unmasking is important.
But it does seem like, look, in a world where there's only so much time and so many priorities, in a Congress where, we didn't get a wall passed, Obamacare has not been repealed or replaced, where there are a lot of priorities that the president ran on remain unfulfilled, for the Republicans in the body to pursue it is basically a fever dream from CNN. Seems a little weird.
Well, there are 6 of us, 3 Rs and 3 Ds, that kind of been assigned to the task force, and we're all on House intel. So we do have broad jurisdiction, but it doesn't include the border wall, it doesn't include health care, it doesn't include tax reform. We're just intelligence. So whether it's North Korea, whether it's human trafficking in South America, it's what we're supposed to do, and providing oversight over the intelligence community is part of it. So the Intel Committee has a robust jurisdiction, but this is part of it. No other committees of Congress, to my knowledge, are holding hearings, not on the House side. And quite frankly, Tucker, we have time. Those of us that are on Intel, we can't talk about we can't talk about North Korea. We can't talk about other things that we are investigating. This is one of those rare exceptions where we can both do it and then ultimately answer people's questions at the end.
So unless I'm missing something, the only crime that we're pretty certain occurred in the U.S. was the leaking of Michael Flynn's conversations with the Russian ambassador. Is that part of the investigation?
I would say the hacking of the DNC would also constitute a criminal act. So, and the FBI would have jurisdiction over both of those. But I don't think Congress is well equipped to investigate crime. In fact, I know we're not. So the constitutional injury or things that are of significant public interest, there is a role for Congress to play. We're dreadful at investigating crime, and we should not attempt to do so. Which is why you don't hear me alleging that people committed crimes. There is a constitutional
It hasn't stopped some of your colleagues, I notice.
It doesn't, and that disappoints me because I think you ought to wait until all of the evidence is in and then ask the jury to draw whatever conclusion you want. But we only have one reputation, and it is so easy to accuse someone of a criminal act. And we do it, unfortunately, in modern-day culture a lot. It's just unfair to the individual, no matter who's doing it.
I totally agree. Are you confident that Director Comey is stable and trustworthy?
I am. I have a rich and provocative history with Director Comey, dating back to 2016. I prefer to talk to him privately than in public because, in fairness to him, he can't answer most of my questions in a public
Well, you said that hasn't stopped him from making all kinds of provocative public statements and then not explaining them.
I have a rich and provocative history with him. We've agreed on some matters. We've not agreed on some matters. Whether I like it or not, he's a foundational witness. In fact, he touches all 4 tranches of our investigation, and he may be the only witness that does touch everything from felonious dissemination all the way back to when did the Bureau initiate their investigation. So he's foundational. It's not fair to ask him questions in public where I know he cannot answer them.
Yes.
And then from him, we'll develop other witness leads and documents that we need.
I'd like to ask him a few questions in public, but I don't think he's coming on.
You should have him on your show.
I don't think
you
he's
just got to tell him which hour you're on, because it's switched.
We'll try. Congressman Gowdy, great to see you tonight. Thank you for that.